obviously here with my co-host Alex, and we have Quinlan. I mean, sorry, Element Seven here today to recap the Bad Batch finale. We'll go to our guest first. How are you doing today? And how you feeling?
I'm feeling good. I was really looking forward to the finale, and the finale felt good. There's a couple of things that is like a sinking feeling in my stomach as I watched it, and I'm excited to dive in and talk about my feelings about those very concepts. But I'm feeling really good right now. Very energized. What about you guys?
Alex, go ahead.
I'm fine. I had my first day of school today, so I planned to stay up for 3 a.m. to watch the episode, but I couldn't do it. I woke up and I was like, I will not comprehend a thing I watched. But I did watch it. I spoke briefly to Drew about how I felt about the episode. I'm a bit indifferent about it, but Drew, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. By the way, last week I woke up so I live on the East Coast, so I woke up at about 5. The episode had been out for 2 hours, and I look at my notifications and I'm like, Element's already got a video up. I'm like, this is the fastest working man on Star Wars YouTube. I'm like, this guy is just like eating and breathing this content. I'm like, that's awesome. So yeah, I woke up around the same time I usually do. I can't wake up at 3 a.m. That's just no throws my whole thing off. But I'm excited to talk about it. Alex, we didn't talk about it much like we usually do, but I'm ready to dive right in. So I guess we'll go to our guest first. What did you like just overall think about this finale? And do you think it ended the first season on a good note?
I have mixed feelings about whether or not it ended it on a good note. Holistically, I enjoyed the episode. I enjoyed the finale as it like standalone. It was very breakneck. The stakes were high. A lot of the characters, they were in peril. And the first time that they separated the Bad Batch into Omega and Crosshair, my thoughts started to swirl. I was like, oh man, this is setting up for what I've been saying week to week, Crosshair's sacrifice. And so I really enjoyed all of the energy and the hype that was going into this episode. And like overall, it made me, I enjoyed it. It made me think about things. It made me appreciate the characters and their skills. And it made me feel like this was going to be a finale. Now, where I diverge from, like, did it end it on a good note? There's like 50% of me that thinks it did. It was a good finale considering we're going to get a season 2, right? So not all roads can't lead to conclusion in that regard, but at the same time there's this like sinking feeling at the back of my head, like I was robbed of a resolution, any kind of resolution. And then I'm not here saying like, oh, I wanted this to happen, it didn't happen, I'm upset about it. It's just I wanted there to be more resolution with Crosshair in terms of like what we're going into next, because like the sizzle scene with Nala Se clued us in. She's going on to work on cloning technology with the Empire, and that's going to go on to the sequels with Snoke and Grogu and all that good stuff. But with Crosshair, we ended with him just staring into the water, and I kind of feel like there could have been something a little bit more climactic and cliffhangery in that regard for Crosshair. But even though I enjoyed the episode, just seeing the Bad Batch kind of fly off and then like Crosshair just sulking, looking at the water, I was just like, I mean, well, I don't have anything to say about that. I can't see that scene and say, oh, well, this is what that means for season 2. So I overall enjoyed the episode. Like my feeling about a resolution with Crosshair doesn't take away from the episode itself, but I do have to express that.
Alex, we'll go next.
Yeah, so I was pretty indifferent about this episode. I enjoyed the escape of Kamino. I was like, after last episode, I was like, there's no way we don't lose someone from this. Like, there's no way. And I guess technically we didn't. We did lose AZ, but then we got him back. But Uh, yeah, I'm kind of indifferent. I'm about 50-50 with this. I enjoyed 50% of it. I'm either let down by the other 50% or kind of was hoping for more. I know I said this when we had Car2D2 on here last episode. Uh, I think this finale should have been longer. I think all finales for any season for Star Wars should be longer than 20 minutes or 25 minutes for content, just because you're wrapping up, especially for a show like The Bad Batch, 16 episodes. That's wrapping up a main cast of 6 characters arcs. How are you going to do that in only 25 minutes? And I think that's the big part where I was like kind of thrown off. Like it's still only focused on Omega and Crosshair, and it didn't focus on anyone else, which is a little like jarring in some places. But again, overall, I enjoyed it. This show is still one of the most visually appealing Star Wars shows of all time. Like Omega looking out to Kamino was just amazing. It was also weird to see Kamino not raining because you know
Yeah.
we're so used to like Force Unleashed and Attack of the Clones and Clone Wars and even Bad Batch showing us a raining Kamino, and see it was kind of weird. So yeah, again, overall, I was 50-50. I was a bit let down by the conclusion with Crosshair because I thought it was definitely building up to a Crosshair redemption, and then the last episode before this just threw it off like, oh my god, he never had the chip, and then what's going to happen with the finale, and then they kind of left, and it feels like they kind of did a 180 with like, we're going to redeem you with, no, we're not.
Yeah, I totally get those complaints. I was looking online, and it's definitely mixed reviews, I'll say. It's definitely, 50-50, like you were saying, Alex. I actually really enjoyed it. Um, Again, I thought about it throughout the day, and I'm like, well, Rebels didn't kill any main characters the first season, and uh, I don't need like Harith was saying here. I don't really need deaths in animated Star Wars shows. The characters went through one hell of a journey these last 2 episodes. So, I mean, it would be kind of weird if they killed Hunter or Omega. That's the main characters. It's too early to do that. And then with Crosshair, I could understand it. Um, but yeah, I agree with Element. I felt like they could have done more, or just found like a clear resolution with his story. It's very open ended the way it ends. Um, I like the end scene with Nala Se. It's definitely connective tissue. We're connecting to obviously Mando and the sequels, but yeah, I just overall really enjoyed it. I think they could have released the two final parts together, and it would have been
Yeah.
maybe would have been a little better, I think. But but overall, I really enjoyed it. I don't have any massive complaints, except for the fact I will say, and this is my complaint throughout the show, the lack of development for characters like Tech and Echo. We have a season 2, so hopefully they get a little bit more
Yeah.
development.
Yeah,
I do agree with Candy. Am I just gonna call you Candy?
you can call me
Candy.
Alex.
I do agree with Alex that in the same vein that they opened up the season with an hour long, or at least like a double header, they could have closed with that, and that would have given them, even if even if it was split into 2 parts, the second part would have had a lot more breathing room to set things up. And to Harith's point, I don't need deaths either,
Yeah,
but when Omega is having such an impactful sequence, losing AZ, and that doesn't kind of deliver, like I kind of feel robbed of even that sacrifice. Like, I don't need the Bad Batch to die, but Omega losing AZ in this kind of sequence of escape kind of just gives you emotion, an emotional payoff that it sounds weird to say. It's like, oh yeah, like I would have enjoyed it more if someone died. But like, when I say emotional payoff, is that like you have this sense of dread the consequences are building, the stakes are there, but like at the end of the day, everything was okay. And I'm not opposed to everything being okay either. It's just that like the way they set it up, I kind of felt like Omega, leaving Kamino, seeing it in shambles, her home destroyed, and then also leaving knowing that AZ was gone would have set up huge things for her in season 2. And that's why I wanted to see more with Crosshair, because like that gives us more to look forward to in season 2 as well. Right now we don't know anything about what's going to happen in terms of Crosshair's arc. He could like realistically go back to the Empire, but we don't even know if the Empire is going to accept him. We don't even know if he's telling the truth, because for all intents and purposes, when someone removes their chip, they no longer hold their heads like that. And he held his head 3 times since then. So I don't know. I think he was either lied to, and the chip is still there, or the chip was removed and it's just residual effects because he was getting it amped up, on the daily. So we'll see.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I definitely agree with the chip thing. I'm like, he's definitely got he may not have it in him, but there may be some, I guess, like everlasting effect that they amplified it so much that even when they took it out, that was actually him, but it was still the chip influencing his decisions, even though the chip wasn't in him. So I definitely get that point. And I personally, I thought about it today. I'm like, I want Crosshair to become like a bounty hunter, like a sniper for
Yeah.
either Jabba or like Crimson Dawn. We talked about it, Alex. They have Dryden Voss's animation model. They did it in season 7 of the Clone Wars. So why not have Crosshair like have a story where he gets rejected by the Empire, realizes that okay, the Empire's a wrong thing, uh, but I'm not going to join the Bad Batch. Let's go, with one of the criminal organizations. So that's where I think his story could go. Because the ending to me is still very weird. I don't know how the Bad Batch is going to connect to Nala Se and cloning. I don't know what they're going to do. Um, so what do you think about all that, Alex?
Well, the thing about the whole tech and echo development, I want to hit on that point. The problem that I feel with those characters, and Drew, you and I have harped on this a lot. They're basically the same character. I mean, through and through, both can do the same thing, hack into things. Both have good shot and whatnot. But the thing is when it comes to the Bad Batch and their development, of course, the show very heavily focused on Hunter and Omega, just like Rebel season 1 focused on Kanan and Ezra, and then season 2 opened you up to the rest of the Phoenix Squadron. Because again, the show's not called the Omega and Hunter show or the Kanan and Ezra show. It's called Star Wars Rebels. It's an overarching character story, and so that's where I'm trying to look at everything that's going on here. However, this Rebels kind of had this same effect, so it's not as bad for me. We kind of feel directionless for season 2. Like, where do we go? What major stories could be told that if they happen, why are they not mentioned anywhere else in the timeline later on? Of course, other than the fact it was never story told. So it just, to me, a lot of this finale kind of left us like, where do we go next? What is next for the Bad Batch? And I honestly would like a big time jump from this season finale. Maybe not a big jump, probably like about maybe a year max. Let Omega kind of get a little older, let the Bad Batch get a little older. Because, you know, I don't know, Crosshair in this episode, he was someone who was like, he's dying or he's being brought back to the Bad Batch, because that's something that Star Wars has put us so used to. Vader, Kylo, all these people, but then they kind of just didn't do that. But I don't know. I think he also would work as a bounty hunter for Dryden Voss. I think that would be a great story to tell. It'd be an amazing story. But with the whole cloning thing, I mean, who knows? Because they were they talking about phase 4 clones or something? Phase 3 on Kamino.
Right.
So and we never got to see that go through. Unfortunately, Kamino got destroyed. So, but yeah, it's I don't know. I'm at the point right now where it's like it's too early to make any assumptions for season 2 and all these tie-ins, just because we don't. The show kind of ended with like how the first episode did. The Bad Batch leaving Crosshair on Kamino.
Yeah.
So
I mean, a
Yeah,
lot
I
of
don't
this
think.
show is
Yeah.
saved. A lot of the show is saved by the fact that there's a season 2. Like, even if, like, in the back of my mind, I'm a little bit, like, discouraged by the lack of resolution, I know that they're just, prolonging that across season 2. But the reason I, the reason I said Quinlan Voss, week in and week out, is going to show up because he can. Narratively speaking, he has no canon death, and it would make sense for a season 2 of the Bad Batch if he showed up, because then Nalase goes off on her divergent, story thread with the Empire, and then that's just the conclusion, right? She doesn't go on to season 2. And for the Bad Batch and Quinlan Voss, that's their story right there. The Quinlan Voss gives the Empire another target. It gives the Inquisitors a target, and it puts Omega squarely in their crosshairs again. And no pun intended.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's why I wanted Quinlan Voss to show up. But I also like going back to like the chip in Crosshair. The reason I say it's still in him, and he's showing a little bit more autonomy over or agency with his decisions, is that I point to Hauser. He was, he still had his chip in, but he was displaying, free thought. He was questioning orders. So I feel like more so than residual effects of having it been removed, it is wearing off. And so Crosshair believes that they removed it, but the Empire has no like real benefit to telling him the truth or even removing it. And I keep on saying this to people. It's like Crosshair's not going to be like, remove the chip, I'll follow your orders. And then they're going to be like, yeah, sure, Chief, we're going to trust you. Remove the chip. But I think they lied to him. They said, we removed it, and now he's just suffering from like, no, they didn't remove it, and then it's just wearing off at this point.
Yeah.
I feel like that
I
could be an
fully
interesting twist for season 2, though.
agree.
Yeah.
Definitely.
It like he never actually had it removed. I mean, because the thing is, like when we see like his little, I don't know, when after the first time we see his head after the explosion on the Venator on Braca, it had all these like weird holes in it. The trypophobia was just not okay. Like the holes always freaked me out, and then they kind of smooth it out, but there's still like some dent. It looks like he like got hit by like a big pole. So yeah, I mean, with the whole chip thing, I honestly wonder like why did the Bad Batch just not just take Crosshair in and make sure of his chip? Because I feel like honestly, Crosshair. I mean, if we think about it, he is like again because Drew and I big Marvel fans and whatnot. The Bad Batch definitely reminisces the Avengers almost through and through, and of course Crosshair is the Hawkeye of the group. And it's like, why would you not want to make sure like all loose ends on that are like chopped off? Because next thing we need is someone else taking control of a brainwashed Crosshair. Because to me, the reason why I still think he has this chip in him also is again he's saying this whole soldiers follow orders. It's just like, where was all this in season 7 of the Clone Wars?
Right.
Exactly. It
So
was the squad first for it.
Yeah. I want to touch on elements Quinlan Voss theory because he keeps talking about it. And I've been fascinated by it. I've been fascinated by it. I feel like just Quinlan Voss like fits that team, like just his personality and stuff, like totally fits it. And I'd love to see it, but I think my only problem with it is I don't need a Jedi in this story. I know, they're a big part of Star Wars, but I think I kind of want to leave that a little bit out. But I wouldn't mind like seeing him as a cameo. I definitely think that would make sense. But yeah, I just this finale just again just feels very like open ended, and I have more questions than answers, which I think is the problem I
Indicative of
maybe
a
have.
great show.
Yes,
Right.
yeah, I guess. Yeah,
Which I will say,
season two will blow us away, and
which I will
you
say,
know,
Drew, for this podcast, we've had a lot of things when we watch things that we have more questions than answer. Like especially with since we just rewatched Thor: The Dark World, the whole ether thing, and this finale again, a lot of questions left. But again, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing because again, Rebels ended almost the exact same way, where it's just like this could go in a million different directions. And if I recall, I haven't watched Rebels season 2 in forever. I feel like it opens up in a space battle. It just puts you in the middle of a battle. So it's easy that we could just like we've seen it before with the Bad Batch. They just open up episodes just middle of a job for Sid. So yeah, I do want to know, Element. What were your thoughts about this whole the season as a whole? Because
Um,
I watched your reactions, except this one, because I haven't had time for all these episodes, and you've been mostly positive about the show. So
yeah. Well, before I answer that question, I do want to touch on what Drew or
yeah,
Hammy
yeah,
Drew
whatever.
said about Quinlan Voss and the need for lightsabers. Like I'm in the same boat as you. I don't need Jedi. I don't need Sith. But the reality is there is a demographic of Star Wars audiences that need that lightsaber, right?
Good point.
And the only reason I would be on board with bringing in Quinlan Voss is that he provides that conflict with the Bad Batch intel. So like I wanted him to show up in the Mandalorian to see like, oh, a Mandalorian and a Jedi. They wouldn't see it coming, and they did that in the Jedi. But to have him as part of the Bad Batch would just give people that like, okay, there's a lightsaber there, but it's not about Jedi and Sith, right? It's still about the Bad Batch. So yeah, I'm on the same boat. I don't need them, but I'm thinking about the people who watch this strictly for the Force and Jedi and Sith, and then trying to kind of appease them into watching the Bad Batch and giving them a show that is about the Bad Batch, but there's a lightsaber. Or lightsabers. To answer Alex's question, it has been largely a positive experience with the Bad Batch. I'm a story driven person, a character driven person, and so when episodes take the time to spend the time with the characters and do things with them personally, I'm on board. Did I want more action? Did I want more kind of consequential plot threads throughout the season one? I would have appreciated it, but at the same time, I also appreciate the development and the character stories of Omega and Hunter and that kind of like father daughter dynamic that played out. So, you know, the whole season for me was largely positive experience for me because I wasn't I signed up for the Bad Batch to see who was Omega, what is her role with the squad, is Crosshair going to come back, and for all intents and purposes, the whole season kind of delivered on those answers, but also raised more questions. But you know,
Drew, what'd you
Yeah.
think? Some
Uh, thought about it today. Overall, I think it is the best first season for any Star Wars animation show, just from a visual perspective and from a story, just the overall story quality of episode. And again, Clone Wars is a different show than Bad Batch and Rebels was. A lot of times with these animated shows, they're trying to find their footing in the first season, and I feel that's very much the case also with this show. Um, I enjoyed it. I gave it like a 7.5 out of 10. There are like eight, like half the episodes I really really like, and like half of them are like meh. I don't think anything is like awful in the show. Uh, and there were some really great moments. Cad Bane, these last three episodes I thought were really good. The season opener, and then there were just some, I'll forget about it. It's there, it
yeah,
happened. So that that's how I feel with all, I think, animated shows in Star Wars. So I don't have any complaints. I gave it like a 7.5 or an 8 out of 10. Solid for a season, I think.
I think the
Alex,
best
what
way
about
for
you?
me to put it, I'm sorry, go ahead. I
Uh,
just say a better way for me to put my take on season one is that there's no episode that I hated, but there are some episodes that I loved. So there's the episodes in between that I neither hated nor loved that are just like, okay, that was good, whatever. So yeah, like it was largely positive in that regard. Same with
Yeah.
Drew.
yeah, same here. Like when we talk about these on this podcast, I sound very negative about the show, but I genuinely do enjoy the show. I'm kind of with Drew on this. I'm kind of like I liked 8 of them. I wasn't a fan of the other 8. I'd say the best thing I could say is some of the episodes of the Bad Batch were some of the peak Star Wars animation episodes, like the episode before this, the first episode, and whatnot. But then we had some like Star Wars Rebels season 1, episode 4 episodes where it's just like, why was this necessary? I mean, I guess you
Yeah.
kind of get the point of what it was trying to accomplish, but it kind of came off as like we don't know how to do that for this part. So I would I would say because when I think about the show, I think a lot of things like the Rise of Skywalker. The movie had a lot of high moments, but it also had a lot of low points where it's kind of just like I think we could have used some touch up here before we released this. And I think the Bad Batch kind of had that the most. Like visually, this is the best Star Wars thing for animation. You know, Rebels gets crapped on a lot for the animation. I like some of it, but you can tell towards the later seasons, visually, it just looks amazing. And then, of course, season 7 of the Clone Wars, and then the big update for the Bad Batch in this
Yeah.
animation style. Again, just Omega looking over to a destroyed Kamino says 1,000 things without a single line of dialogue. So, um, yeah, that's just me. I'd probably give this season it. Drew, you know I'm a big Rebels fan. I'll stand that first season anytime, especially the season finale. Uh, Big fan of the Grand Inquisitor duel, the Ahsoka reveal. So I would probably say this probably has, if we're not including the Mandalorian, probably the second best Disney or the probably second best animation first season. But if we're including the Mandalorian, probably the third overall best first season.
Um, I think I would agree that like across the board the sequels would have could have used a whole bunch of the cut scenes that they cut.
Yes,
I think the sequels could have used extended cuts.
especially the Last Jedi.
Yes, especially Last Jedi with Finn. That was a consequential scene. I don't know why they cut it out, but like in terms of like the peak of animation for me was the Gregor episode. It just the planet looked beautiful. Like when everything just looked beautiful. And this whole series looked incredible. And in terms of like, you know, all of these shows are really different from each other. So I hesitate, or at least I'm trepidatious to compare them. But I would still hold Rebel season one as the top season, first season, primarily because Order 66 is very well known. And we were introduced to the Bad Batch in season 7 of Clone Wars. We had a lot of time to simmer on them, connect with them, essentially. And then Clone Wars season 1 takes place in Clone Wars. Obi-Wan, Anakin, we know them. Rebels is a new character, new story, new a group of characters and new story. So season 1 with them, it can feel draggy at times, you know, but that's because we don't know these characters. We don't know their motivations or goals yet, right? And once we do, by the end of season 1, you're like, everything else is better, right? Because you think, oh, season 1 was a drag, but season 2, 3, and 4 are so much better. Well, that's because you've had the time to connect with these characters now. So, you know, I'd say Rebels is still up there for me in terms of a season 1 outing because they were able to do that with new characters.
And
Yeah.
I'm honestly hoping we get to that point to the Bad Batch, which kind of swings into my next question for both of you. How long do you think the show runs? We know it's getting at least 2 seasons. Drew, where are you going in terms of the seasons?
I think it can last as long as Rebels did. So like 4 seasons. I could see that. I could easily see that.
Do you think the seasons should contain 16 episodes still, or do you think they should lower those?
Uh Again, I think it all depends. Obviously, so this is the thing with Bad Batch season 2. It's coming out in the midst of probably three of the most highly anticipated Star Wars projects in a while: Boba Fett, Kenobi, and Andor. So I don't know how they're going to fit that all in next year. I would assume it's going to stay the same for consistency reasons. Um, so yeah, I would say 16 most likely.
Element, what are
Mm-hmm.
you thinking for season count?
If you watch my reactions or any of my kind of like breakdowns, I've always thought this was a one and done show. They announced season two. I was like, okay. I kind of feel like it has to end after 2 seasons. This is the most ham-fisted, restrictive time period of Star Wars. After Order 66, there's a whole bunch of things happening in the background with comics, books, and you find yourself in a situation that you had with Caleb. You're stepping on toes of other canon material, and granted, they can do that. They can retcon all they want, or they can insert the Bad Batch into stories that they don't exist in. But I'd rather they not do that. And I think that given a season two, they have to be really careful about stepping on the toes of other canon material, and it has to end in the second season. Otherwise, like shows like Solo, who's relatively happening in a couple of years from then, is without any mention of the Bad Batch. You're gonna have to kill. I hate saying this. You're gonna have to kill them. You're gonna have to Rogue One the Bad Batch in season
Mm,
two.
Right.
It's just they don't exist in any of these other stories. Either they have to take a divergent narrative path with Quinlan Voss, or they have to be Rogue One. They have to be Sunset in some way.
Right. They have to be
yeah,
Suicide Squad. Yeah.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I I agree with that. I
Yeah.
think.
So
Yeah.
I also want to ask because again, me and Drew, we've talked about this again. We've 16 episodes of the Bad Batch review. Um, Element, what have you thought about how many episodes we've gotten? Do you think we should have got less? Do you think more? Like, where does your stand still with this?
Um, I think I think I think this was right on the money. You know, uh, was it 16 weeks?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's pretty standard for a season one. A lot of shows go over 20 at some point, but you know, they have a lot of shows. They have a lot of shows in the backlog that's coming out, and they can't step on each other's toes. Like even with Loki coming out in the midst of Bad Batch, they had to shift that to Wednesday. So like when they start bringing out Book of Boba, Mando 3, Ahsoka, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and that's all dropping with Acolyte and all these other shows, and potentially new shows that are announced from the time from this day onto the time that those shows premiere. We'll have more announcements. So I think keeping it as concise as possible is the best way to go, so that they can keep the stories tight and also leave room for the other shows to kind of fill in the gaps, so that like this 16 weeks, or after 16 episodes, 15 or 16 episodes, we got like 2 week break, and then there's the other show. So after the Bad Batch, we have Visions, non-canon, but we've got 9 potentially short to long feature length films to watch. So if you give that like one a week, then you're already setting yourself up to walk right into Book of Boba Fett. So I think think that's what they're planning with all of this. All of these the length of the seasons and stuff is going to correlate with their rollout of other shows.
Definitely. I mean, they're obviously looking at that stuff. They see more stuff than we do, obviously. Or I would hope.
Hmm.
I would
Yeah.
hope.
Yeah.
But yeah. So, Alex, you got any more questions or?
I do for both of you. You specifically, Drew, because we kind of talked about this off camera sometimes. So it's looking like in December we are going to at one point have Book of Boba Fett, Spider-Man: No Way Home, and Hawkeye, roughly within the same week or two. What do you think? And again, this is going off of Spider-Man: No Way Home does not get pushed back due to Sony and all that pushing it back. Um, I want to ask you, Drew and Element, which show are you more excited for? I feel like I feel like all three of us have the same answer, but I feel like for different reasons.
So, you include Spider-Man with Boba Fett, right? Spider-Man,
No,
Boba Fett, Hawkeye.
we'll do just Spider-Man or not Spider-Man, Hawkeye and Book of Boba Fett.
Oh, Boba Fett. I mean, I like Marvel, but Star Wars is my thing. That's what I grew up with as a kid. Boba Fett's a iconic character. I know Hawkeye is too, but I don't know if Hawkeye is as iconic to the degree as Boba Fett. And Boba Fett has like what, like one line in the original trilogy. Um, so like,
Oh, don't
sorry,
disrespect
Hawkeye.
him.
I'm not
Don't
trying to slander
disrespect.
Hawkeye, but like,
Don't
it's Boba
disrespect
Fett.
Boba Fett. Oh,
Sorry,
yeah.
it's Boba Fett. It's more exciting.
Yeah, I'm more excited for Book of Boba Fett. Like I'm a Hawkeye stan at this point, but I'm telling you, like I really just want to see him and Fennec's relationship keep going because I want to know more. I feel like there is more to their history that we have not seen yet. So
Yeah, you
I
have
want,
to be. There's room for you to be excited about both.
oh
Like,
yeah, oh yeah.
because
Right.
like it's like, what are you most excited about for Marvel? What are you most excited about for Star Wars?
Right, yeah. I mean, it's just hard because eventually, me and Drew on here reviewing both shows. It's gonna get hard considering they're both releasing on Wednesdays. Then, not to mention,
Well,
of course, we're gonna. Oh wait, what?
I don't know if they're gonna do that, man.
You don't
I
know?
mean,
You don't think they'll do it?
I I don't think that Marvel Studios at Lucasfilm is gonna be too happy about that. You think they'd be happy releasing the show like
Oh,
together? I guess.
well, the thing is it's gonna come down to ratings war at that point. Because if you think about it, if we look at it, do we want a near season or series finale for Hawkeye to do better than a season or a series premiere for Book of Boba Fett? So it's going to conflict eventually. They're going to conflict. And I just think that they should either move Hawkeye to Friday or they should move Book of Boba Fett to Friday. Preferably Book of Boba Fett.
Right.
I think they're operating on the assumption that people are just going to watch Hawkeye. So
Yeah,
it
I
doesn't
think
really
so.
matter if it's on a Wednesday. Like Loki. Like, who would have thought that a Marvel TV show would drop on a Wednesday? But people watched it anyway because it was Marvel. So
Right.
I'm a Hawkeye fan too. He's my favorite Avenger of all time.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
so I am excited for that. I'm excited to see him see what Kate Bishop does in that regard, getting the mantle. But I'm also excited for Book of Boba Fett. As Drew said, he literally had one line, and so that spawned a crazy fandom around of Boba Fett. That to this day, I'm like, why? Like he looked cool, had one line, got trolled into a Sarlacc pit, and that's it. Granted, after the fact, we had a lot of EU stuff, open seasons, and all of those comics that painted him as a Mandalorian and made him more than he was. But the fandom existed before the expanded material. So I'm excited for that fact to see what canon has to offer to give Boba Fett that kind of breadth of character, to give people a chance to become a fan of him, a fan of him actually, instead of what
Narratively.
their idea of him is.
Right.
Yeah.
And Element's going to be answering all the questions. Is Boba Fett a Mandalorian? Because people will be asking him that
Uh,
during that time.
I think the fact that debate. I think the fact that debate is still going on is so surreal to me. He would
I
just say
mean,
he does not serve anybody but himself. So
I don't know why it's even important. Boba Fett is badass on his own.
Right.
right,
He doesn't need to be a Mandalorian, but people need him to be. Like when he revealed his Django was a foundling, people were like, "Oh, he's Mandalorian." No, it's just he's a foundling. So what we've gathered in terms of canon facts about Mandalorian culture, according to the armorer in the Mandalorian, you're a foundling until you come of age. Then you choose Mandalore or another life, and all evidence points to the fact that Django didn't choose Mandalore. So it's true he's a foundling. Doesn't automatically mean he's a Mandalorian. I feel like, Jaster gave him the armor, and trained him, and then when he came of age, he was like, "I want to be a bounty hunter," and so he went off and did that. He's still a badass character. Like this is something that I'll never understand. Is needing someone to be like it's like needing a Force user to be a Jedi or a Sith in order for them to be a badass Force user. And so, yeah, but Boba Fett will always stand on his own 2 feet. He's not Mandalorian, and certainly not in the eyes of Bo-Katan and Casca. So, sorry, everyone.
Yeah,
right,
yes, yeah. Plus, I agree. Like, you need to differentiate him and Din's character. Like, because if he's a Mandalorian, then it's just essentially Din, but with different armor. They obviously be different character stories, but like, I feel like that's what makes Boba unique. Like, he has
Yeah,
Mandalorian armor, but like, he's not a Mandalorian. So, just be a little
yeah.
different there.
yeah. I mean, the thing is like when it comes to the Book of Boba Fett, there's so many things that they could do in that show. I'm still surprised that we do not know that much through like leaks and whatnot. Like I know, Drew, you talk to me about leaks all the time, and do not recall you saying anything about the Book of Boba Fett.
I mean, I will say Star Wars does a really good job of keeping things concealed. I think even more so than Marvel. I mean, today we literally had a suit for a character leak. I'm not gonna say who, but we literally had a suit leak. Like we saw the whole suit. I'm like, how does that happen?
I mean,
How does
not to
that?
mention like, the entire Spider-Man thing with actors confirming that they're in the movie before they're supposed to. Like, come on, like Marvel's getting a little ridiculous when it comes to like the spoilers and whatnot. But Star Wars, like, it wasn't even really that bad around Mando season 2. There was just a lot of people saying, "I think this person's gonna be in there," and then everyone started saying, "Oh, so they're gonna be in there." But no,
I
with
feel like, I feel like it's a lot easier. Like if you're in the vicinity of any filming of any project, it's a lot easier to spot a person in a suit than it is to spot like a cloak and dagger Jedi or a character in Star Wars, right? Unless they're Mandalorian and they have the armor on. There's not a lot of like really flashy suits that you can point to. So if you see Spider-Man and like there's a film crew, you're like, oh, they're filming Spider-Man. Here's a leak. As opposed to you see a guy in a cloak and you're like, is that Luke? But you're not gonna think that. So it's
right,
definitely
with
easier to leak that stuff.
you're achieving that until like to the point like Andor. I remember when we first started Drew this podcast, it was bad. Andor was getting everything leaked, sets, characters, costumes, everything was coming out, and then Kenobi's had some light leaks. Like, of course, they had the Tatooine set leak. Like, oh wow, we're gonna be on Tatooine. Who would have known?
I actually don't
But
think that was real because they
really,
have stagecraft, right? They have Tatooine on stagecraft on volume for Mandalorian. Why would they create a practical set for Tatooine if they're going to film in on stagecraft most of the time?
I mean, to
I
be
wonder.
fair, it
I
is
wonder
better
if
to
they
do a
want to make it
practical
feel
set.
more like it was in like Revenge of the Sith in the movies.
It
I think
could.
stage. I think that's maybe what they're going for. I'm not
Right.
so sure, but again, that's another reason why stuff uh, doesn't really get leaked. Is I think Star Wars has been using the stagecraft more. I know Marvel. I know they did it with Thor: Love and Thunder, but like I don't know how to what degree Marvel Studios is using it.
Yeah, we haven't gotten a gallery episode for like how they've evolved that technology. It started out as volume and now they call it stagecraft. So I think for these newer shows, they could have expanded the soundstage to like a large set, and the stagecraft is just this is Tatooine, and then they could practically build half of Tatooine on that soundstage. And so that's why the only leak you have is that person, you know, taking pictures of something that looks like Tatooine, but it's not.
I mean, yeah, it's like we've had like I remember Drew when we talked about this. Did they show the entire Kenobi costume, or was it just still like a little bit of the boots and a little bit of the pants?
Yeah, it was him in like one of those black coats to cover things, like cover his outfit. It was just him and like you could just see his boots. So
Yeah,
like
but hey, even then, the boots and a little bit of the pants did not look like his Revenge of the Sith pants, nor his A New Hope pants. So we are getting hopefully, fingers crossed, a new Obi-Wan costume. So
I would hope I that'd be cool.
I just want to see
So
Ewan McGregor in like Clone Wars armor.
yeah, same
I
with
just
Hayden
want to see Ewan
Christensen.
McGregor again. That's just
Yeah.
I
Right.
still can't even get over that. Like I especially Hayden. Like I can't believe he
Mhm.
came. That's
Yeah,
insane.
it's
Like
surprising.
Anakin in Clone Wars armor, like I think
Uh,
with the presence of Hayden, I think his destiny is to film some flashbacks and not be, you
yeah,
know, behind a mask.
because it feels so weird to bring him back in a mask.
Yeah,
Why
Right.
bring him back in general? Unless you're doing some like helmet off shots, like in one of his meditation chambers.
yeah, that's not gonna happen.
Yeah, but you
Yeah,
can only do that. You can only do that so often as it is until it gets like very repetitive. Like,
right. And
oh,
so yeah, so it's just gonna be like,
is he always in that tank? I
right?
guess. Like it just
Is he when he's not hunting after someone? Does he just sit in there waiting? But
No, I
right.
mean like he's so Vader 2017 after Order 66. He is out there. He
mhm,
is doing things. He's not like
Jedi.
he's not in the tank. He's hunting Jedi. He's fighting people. He's investigating Padme's murder. He's out there doing things, and like that would be cool to see Hayden do those things because the timeline matches a little bit, even though 2017 is right after Order 66, and this is supposedly 10 years after. I just think that it's his destiny to do flashback scenes. Like,
Yeah,
there's no way they're bringing him back to not show his face.
right.
Kenobi's only 6 episodes, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I forgot. But they're gonna be longer episodes, like Mandalorian length. So I'm okay
Hopefully.
with that. I
Yeah.
don't. Could you imagine they do 6 episodes and they're like Bad Batch length? That'd
Uh,
be so copped out. But yeah, I
I
don't know.
doubt it.
Kenobi. I don't know. After Bad Batch, Drew, do you still feel like Kenobi's kind of a make or break for these shows?
Obviously, like when we, I don't like using that term because Star Wars will always be around,
Oh yeah.
right? Always gonna be massive, but I think from a fandom's, it's very much feels like the Last Jedi hype or like Spider-Man No Way Home hype.
Yep.
Like, uh, I think people may. I hope people learn their lesson. They don't put all their eggs in one basket. I think the show is gonna be good. I trust Deborah Chow. I trust that Kenobi team. But kind of tame your expectations a little bit. I think if people do that, show will be great. But
Yes.
Yeah, Star
Star
Wars
Wars fan,
never has
so,
a make or break.
right?
It's like when I think of make or break, like when we look at expectations specifically, is what I'm talking about. The first thing that comes to mind is The Last Jedi. Coming off of The Force Awakens, that movie was hyped up. Now, personally, to me, it lived up to it exceeded expectations. It's my favorite Star Wars movie. So, for me personally, I enjoyed it, but I get for other people, it wasn't their thing, and that was because they expected a little too much out of that, and now we're kind of seeing it. We're kind of seeing it right now with Spider-Man: No Way Home. It's like we said, Drew. I think we said this in our Thor and Thor: The Dark World review, a re-review. The movie's destined to flop, or not flop in terms of money and whatnot, but it's destined to fail in terms of fan expectation. We're that everyone's thinking we're gonna have a whole other portal scene from Endgame in that scene or in that. So it's like with Kenobi, I also like I'm trying to. It's hard because it's Ewan McGregor. Like he's gonna be good regardless, no matter what script you give him. So
I will say this: Star Wars doesn't have make or break, but it is very divisive in nature, and that's what the Last Jedi was. It was divisive. The people that love it absolutely love it. The people that hate it absolutely hate it. And that's a very, that's a very disparate measurement to take of this kind of spectrum of fans, but that's the truth of it. But Kenobi runs the risk of running into that divisive nature of things because Obi-Wan is a type of character to a different type of character to different people. As a person who has justified the Rey Kenobi theories, he's fallen in love before. He's loved Satine. He would have left the Jedi Order. Against the people who think that he is the spitting image of the perfect Jedi that has no flaws. It's kind of the same thing as that was plaguing Luke with The Last Jedi. It's like he is the pinnacle of hope and light in the galaxy. He wouldn't do this or that. So it all depends on how people kind of mitigate their expectations of like, are they going to show Obi-Wan in a light that is, that diverges from their own perspective of who Obi-Wan is? Because I think he's very much flawed. He's gone through more than Anakin.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Oh yeah, and I was even just about to ask. You kind of even started knocking on that door. Do you guys think we'll see any Luke Skywalker changes like we did in the Last Jedi for Obi-Wan? I don't think we're gonna have him, throwing the lightsaber behind him and kind of just walking away. But do you think we're gonna see a different Obi-Wan? I mean, we're clearly gonna see of course, war-torn character. Still getting over 10 years later, what he did to Anakin and whatnot. So, what do you guys think is going to happen with Kenobi? How different is he going to be from Revenge of the Sith?
Well, I think the obvious thing is he's going to be dealing. I want to see the PTSD, that's very clear. I also want to see his relationship with Qui-Gon. Like, how does that conversation go?
Right, because we are canonically around the time where Qui-Gon learns to project him or show himself as a Force ghost. So these reports of Liam Neeson saying that he was never approached or whatever. But yes, he's gonna be there.
Yeah.
No, I could not.
Ewan McGregor for a couple of years was like, no one's talked to me about it.
Yeah,
then,
for that
when he was on D23, he was like, I've had to say that for how many years, but yeah, I've been a part of this. So Liam Neeson is just like, he's there filming right now, and then he's on the phone with a reporter saying, no one's talked to me. So he's part of it. I think that Obi-Wan has less likely of a chance to be shown out of character simply because we know what he's been through. We didn't have that. People will claim that we had that with, New Jedi Order, but that wasn't canon. But we didn't have that in canonically for Luke. So the direction that they went with Luke could have been any direction. Whereas Obi-Wan, we have Star Wars 2015 showing, he's coping with PTSD. He's coping with not being a Jedi anymore. It's really difficult for him to come to terms with just that fact. And then he has to roam the streets of Tatooine and not save people in for the fear of, being found out or being ID'd as a Jedi. So, like, in that regard, that's how different he will be. Because he's hiding. He's trying to lay low. He's trying to keep a low profile. And when he's back at his cabin, we will see, because, yes, it did take 10 years for him to show up. So we will see that relationship. And we will see him training to become a Force ghost. So, within the confines of his cabin, he's very much Obi-Wan Kenobi. and he's struggling, of course, but he's him. But out there in the public eye, he's trying to be a different person, and I really hope people understand why that is a case.
Definitely.
Hmm.
So I kind of want to segue now into a little bit of news. So uh, it was announced yesterday at what was it, quarter three earning calls for Disney, that they're gonna do a Disney Plus Day. That's gonna be November 12th. Uh, they announced that they're gonna announce future projects. I would assume that they will also give us updates on projects that are going on. So I wanted to ask you guys, do you think we get anything new announced, even though up to that point only two shows would have come out? So we'll start with our guest. Do you think we get any announcements of new shows?
Um, I don't think we're gonna get anything new that we don't already know, but I think we're gonna get details of things that is new to us. So in terms of like a project that we haven't heard of, I don't think that's the case. At least not for this day. But we are going to get like more details on Rogue Squadron. Maybe, just maybe, if Ryan Johnson's project has anything to do with Disney Plus, any details on that. But I think it's still a trilogy. Um, we'll get some more information on Acolyte, just more information in general about the shows that are more further out on their plate. Um, Now I don't know if it's being positioned as Disney Plus Day and it's only about Disney Plus,
I
or if it's just.
I don't know. I didn't. I know there's a whole thing. I haven't listened to it, but I think that's what it is. I'm pretty sure. I'm not positive.
I think in general, what we're gonna get on that day is stuff about shows we already know, just more details about them because we don't know anything about Acolyte. We don't know anything about. Um, we might even get some news on Rangers of the New Republic and whether or not that's going to continue in an official capacity because that hasn't been confirmed or denied yet. Um, so yeah, I mean, like, there's a lot of shows. Like, there's Droids, there's Lando, there's a whole bunch of shows that have been announced that we just don't know anything about. And I think, at least for this Disney Plus Day, we'll get those details.
Alex, what do you think?
I think we're probably, yeah, just like what Alvin said, we're probably gonna get a bunch of details about stuff, but I would like trailers and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you know, I don't know when this is taking place, but if Kenobi's not out, give us a trailer and or all that stuff. I think trailers for both all the shows for Marvel and Star Wars would just be better right now, especially with the whole Spider-Man No Way Home trailer controversy and a movie being more hyped up than a bunch of movies with trailers. So uh, I would I would love a Kenobi trailer, even if it's a small tease. Like I just want something for all the shows, every single one, except Droid Story because it's the one story I'm just not excited about.
Oh
We'll get an
man.
Ahsoka trailer for sure.
You think?
I know that they've been filming Book of Boba and Mando concurrently because it just makes sense, right? They're in the same kind of timeline and universe.
Yeah.
So I think maybe hopefully some Ahsoka details. Maybe announce who's being cast for Sabine.
Right. Yeah. I honestly think that they're gonna announce something new. I really think that they're gonna go crazy. I I I just think it. Obviously Marvel's gonna announce
Quinlan Voss
something.
show.
Right. Yeah. I I
Yes.
I think that Marvel, obviously Feige likes to have 27 projects in a year, but
Just to
I
cancel
think
10 of them.
yeah. Well, I think they're gonna announce something. This is what I would really like. I I've read some of the High Republic. I really think they could do something in animation. I think,
Yes,
the books have been really successful. I think they got an audience. Uh, and I think can get some new Star Wars fans and tell some new stories. I think that would be perfect.
But hey, let
An
me let me
animation show.
let me ask you this: do you think it should be adaptations of the books, or do you think the books or do you think they should tie into the books? So you're not forced to read, but you're encouraged for more context and character development to go read. Light of the Jedi or Into the Dark and whatnot.
I think you could just take the characters that we've already established, like Marchie and Roe and the Drengir and Reith Silas and Master Comac and all those characters, and like put them in, have their stories told also in like animation. Um, and the High Republic is, we don't know how long it is, but I assume there's a lot of story to tell there. It's like it's 200 years before the Phantom Menace, so like I feel like they could do something within that time period. And plus, Star Wars needs to go in a weird and new direction. I feel like the High Republic. I think what it excels at, it's different. I like my Star Wars a little bit weird sometimes. It's a little bit weird to me when I read it, and I like
Mm-hmm.
that. So like I feel like animation would be like they already have like great comic book art that I've seen. I'm like this would be really cool to see in animation. So I'd be down with something like that. And then I also think they need to focus more on the dark side. I think the acolyte's kind of the test for that, and I really feel like they could announce something else. The dark side character, obviously, my big thing is Tom Hiddleston as young Emperor Palpatine, an origin story for him. Um,
Nice.
so
It's
I'm
just
hoping
a
for that.
Plagueis show
Yeah, something like that. I don't think
or a
that's what
younger
the
Palpatine.
a younger Palpatine. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that's what I'm feeling. But I
Yeah.
also agree with you guys about updates on new shows
Well,
or the shows we already announced.
I agree with you about High Republic too, because right now the Star Wars is tall, and it needs to get wider. Right, tall as in like it's a very long timeline, but like within this time frames, there's very little room for them to move, so it needs to get wider. With the High Republic, in an like an animated show or a live action show, you could definitely do something that's adjacent to the books, like they're doing now with these books. They have Light of the Jedi, Into the Dark, The Rising Storm, Out of the Shadows, and then there's like the juniors and middle grades that are adjacent to the stories. They either happen concurrently or they happen just after or just before, and they have references to these events. So, Out of the Shadows happens after Rising Storm, and then there's Race to Crash Point Tower that happens concurrently with the Rising Storm. With the show, and there's a lot of characters now that have diverged from the main story that we can completely. I just want an animated show about Orla Jareni and the Wayseekers, or a show about Vernestra being too young to be a knight. There's so many subjects that is not lost on these authors, and I hate it when people complain about this very thing when Vernestra is too young to be a knight. It's like, yeah, no, duh, she is too young. She knows it. She's having her own doubts, and like, so this is the point of the story. And Chaco likes to say, yeah, Rudy's too short to be a football player. That's the point,
Yeah,
you know. So just there's a lot of characters to go horizontally with your growth in terms of world building. So there's a lot of characters. Avar is off somewhere doing something. I don't want to spoil the books, but it's not really being explored in heavy detail with these new books that have come out. Maybe they will in the next wave that they've announced, but this just goes to show you there's so many narrative threads that they're kind of expanding outwards. If they do any kind of show, they could do it about that. Just take the characters that have been established.
yeah. I feel like it could be like a Clone Wars type of show where you just explore different parts of the galaxies, different factions during that time, just something new. And I feel like it's been successful. There's obviously a big audience of readers who have enjoyed it. I think some of the books have been New York Times bestsellers. So you have the audience. Why
Yeah.
not do it? Introduce it to new fans. No, you'll get kids. So I think I think that'd be perfect.
Yep, absolutely, I agree.
So I guess the other thing I wanted to talk about was, Taika Waititi, or
Taika Waititi.
Waititi. God, I always mess his name up, man. I always mess it up. I'm just gonna call him Taika from now on. So he talked a little bit about
Korg.
yeah, talked a little bit about his Star Wars movie. He said, "We've got a story. I'm really excited because it feels very me." He says, "I tend to go down that little, sincerity alleyway in my films." He says, "I like to fool the viewer to thinking, ha, it's this,' and them going, 'Damn it, you made me feel something.'" So,
Mm.
I kind of want to ask you, Element. We'll start with you. are you excited for this movie? I know it's far away, but what are your expectations? We don't know a lot, but like, what do you want to see from this movie?
So a lot of what I feel about this movie is highly speculative. But judging from his, I can't really say anything about what he said, because what he said in that interview is exactly what he said. You're gonna think it's something, and then he's gonna be like, nope, it's not that. So you're kind of like falling into his trap in terms of like a play with words there. But what they've shown of this show or movie, what they've shown of this project is the Star Wars logo in a prehistoric treatment, and my mind can't get away from Dawn of the Jedi. It can't get away from the Jedi and exploring, Thoyor and their call to all these Force users, and seeing if they can successfully adapt the Dawn of the Jedi story from EU into something that's palpable in canon. Because, with act like we have to have that story, because of course the High Republic is our earliest canon information of history. We have references to the hyperspace wars and the Old Republic, but we don't have any stories. So I kind of feel like, I don't know, is it wrong of me to think that that treatment of that logo, the prehistoric nature of it, has something to do with the Dawn of the Jedi? I might be overthinking it, but that's what I want
No,
from it.
I don't think you are. I think that would be an. I don't know if that would be a Taika type of story to tell. I don't. Maybe. Hey, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he's tricking me there. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I love Ragnarok and stuff. I love Taika's work, but like, I feel like Taika
Well,
works for Star Wars. Just he's weird. That's what
let me
Star Wars
let me
needs to be.
address that. Um, let me address that. I think it actually fits Taika, because he does say it's very me. But if you read Dawn of the Jedi, it's very fanciful. It's very artsy. They've got temples and branches and Harry Potter schools for different aspects of the Force. They've got people who are red, people who are blue, and different creatures. It's very, very Thor Love and Thunder. No, not Love and Thunder. Thor Ragnarok. You know, and so I think he could very much pull it off that time period. It's not very. It's like the the order of Daibendu and the Jedi in that time is very, very slapstick. It really is. If it's gonna be a 1-to-1 from EU, and that's part of the reason why I don't really recommend it for people who are asking. It's great to know from a historical standpoint, but it's weird and ridiculous, and you know it fits Taika. So if he can take some of that and canonize it in a way where it's like palatable for people, I think he could do it. I think he's the one to do it.
Alex, what do you think? You're a big Taika guy. You love
Yes.
Ragnarok. You were really excited when this was announced. But what do you think about like his movie? Like,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts?
Well, you know the time period I think they should go and explore. It's the Old Republic. I think that's honestly that is Star Wars is probably one of its best eras. You can just do so much there, and if you can have so many new force powers, and people question, well, where were all these force powers during blah blah blah? They got lost after
Mm-hmm.
some big war. That's it. It's simple stuff like that. And I think Taika Waititi, if he had control over the character specifically of HK-47, would make my heart melt to the ground. Or even 000, if they want to have a Dr. Aphra movie, oh, he would be a great 000. He fits, like, his voice can just fit any great comedic character. So
Yeah.
I'm really
Oh, I
excited
didn't think
for
about
this
that.
movie.
Yeah,
So,
Taika voiceover HK-47.
yeah.
That would be hilarious.
yeah.
Observation. It's
I feel, yeah. I feel like he could do also something like really weird, like about a pirate faction, just in the middle of a random time period. Like I don't feel like these standalone movies like Rogue Squadron or Taika's movie have to be insanely significant to the canon. I just want like a fun Star Wars movie that still fits the canon, of course, but like just tell a fun story. And I feel like
Yeah.
that's would work for Taika. Like imagine he did like a Hondo thing. That would be
Mm.
cool.
Yeah.
That would be
Or High
really cool.
Republic High Republic Nile,
Yeah,
Tempest Runner.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I feel like he could do something like that.
I mean, his
So
options are limitless, really.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Star Wars
definitely.
is limitless.
Oh, totally. Yeah, we have like what, like 50 years of like timeline that we've had so much stuff in. Like we
Yeah.
could open
Mm-hmm.
up. There's so much. What did Vision say? Like 25,000 years of stories.
Yes.
So like
Yeah.
you have so much time.
The EU Dawn of the Jedi started around 2025 something, 25 number BBY. So there's precedence for that to go all the way back to 25,000, and I believe the Old Republic as it stands in Legends goes from 9,000 to 1,000. So that's a huge chunk of time for him to explore, and I like that idea from Alex, that Taika can explore, because the Old Republic is great, and some of the stuff that Ray found in the texts that people complain, like, as he was saying, where did that knowledge come from? Well, one of the books is described as having been lost for 5,000 years. So we go past 5,000 years to the Old Republic. That's where all that knowledge is, right? So it makes perfect sense.
Yes, that's like it. It would not only fit in with the whole addressing the whole Ray thing with how did she knew all this during the Rise of Skywalker. With you can literally again, you can introduce some of the most over the top Force abilities. I mean, we have to remember this is a franchise where at one point Luke Skywalker could just do some of the most insane things in Star Wars Legends. Like he was a whole beast. I mean, it's
I
crazy.
really hate EU for
Right.
that. No, I love Legends, but when EU made Star Wars like My Hero Academia, if you
Yes,
don't,
very fantastical.
yeah, when it did that and it gave Luke Super Saiyan, I was like,
Well, yeah, I
come
mean,
on.
even then we have characters like Starkiller who ripped a Star Destroyer out of the sky. Like
Yeah,
he was able to move and manipulate where it went. So it's and even then again like I love the Force Unleashed and whatnot. As bad as the second game was, I I still enjoy the story, even though it is kind of weird to accept that Galen at like 18 years old, like around that 18, 19, 20 years old, destroyed Vader in hand to hand combat.
yeah.
I'm happy canon, like, he obliterates almost everyone he fights.
Oh,
Yeah,
So,
the
totally.
EU was such a disservice to the versus community.
yes, yes.
Yes.
So, that to
No.
me, again, you can create, like, you can have someone do Force Storm or, any of these just super fantastical abilities, like, who
I don't think
knows?
they would, though.
No, I don't think they would either
I think they
because,
would kind of like rein it in, but
yeah,
give you the hint that it's possible. Like someone like the ritual of Nathema with Vitiate. I think they would hint at the possibility that you could perform a ritual to do something so powerful, but individually, you
yeah,
can't do a thought bomb and destroy
right,
people's minds, right?
yeah,
You can't become one with the Force without dying. I honestly thought that they were ready to do that in The Last Jedi. Like, Force projection wasn't the first thing on my mind. I keep on telling people when he had this, when Kylo had his saber through Luke, I was like, is Luke ready to go Super Saiyan? Is he going like one with the Force? I'm like,
Same.
so yeah.
I thought Luke was immortal. It's like what is happening right now?
No, like the thing is like every time I hear people talk bad about the movie, they're like, "Oh, the twist that he was a force projection was so obvious." Like if you just were paying attention, I was just like, "No," I was being in awe that we're about to see Luke Skywalker destroy Kylo Ren in a fight. Like I wasn't caring about his footprints being on the floor. I
Yeah.
glazed over that.
You see
Right.
It's
when people discuss the throne room fight, like we're not watching these movies frame by frame when we
Yeah,
watch them.
that's
We
why.
could analyze every fight in Star Wars frame by frame and find flaws. It's not the point.
Yes, it's like
It's
the one
crazy.
of people consider the Mustafar duel to be the best duel. There are so many, first of all, choreography flaws in that fight, but so many editing errors in that fight. It's almost insane if you actually watch it slowly. But again, that's not the point. I'm not going around
Yeah,
watching Avengers Endgame in 0.25 speed to notice, oh, are there any glaring clipping flaws? Like, even then, like, the people who worked on these movies, they can very much tell you, like, the people who edited Avengers Endgame, they were like, yeah, we kind of went back and rewatched the movie and noticed, yeah, we have a bunch of editing mistakes in this movie that weren't supposed to be there, but what are you going to do about it? And it's like, that's why when I see people say, oh, the whole dagger thing or Ray kicking three people, like, you have to honestly think, like, this is a universe where people can just choke people out by thinking about it. So
yeah.
it's also
But the
like,
reality is, she didn't though. That's like
yeah, she did.
Right.
It
you
was
come
so
to that
bad.
you come to that conclusion by going frame by frame. Oh, she kicked three people. It was like, no, did you actually go frame by frame? Because she didn't. She kicked
Yeah,
one. The guy in the center staff pushes the guy on his right back, and then the other guy's just spinning around for another attack. He's not. She's not kicking them all at the same time.
right. It's also
It's
like spins in Star Wars fight happen all the time.
Hmm.
Like the prequels, especially Clone Wars fights. Like, come on. I mean,
it's so odd. It's like, especially for me, who doesn't love that movie. Like, I have a hard time like actually wanting to critique it because I don't like to say this, but people who usually critique that movie, I'm just gonna say it, sound unintelligent sometimes. They just
You
sound like
know,
they don't know what they're talking about. I'm sorry, I
I
have to say it. I have to
well,
say
no,
it.
I know what you mean because the people who usually are on the pretense of holding the Lucasfilm accountable and being critical are actually making it harder for people to be critical of
yeah,
these movies because the way that they are critical of these movies is very hyperbolic and just hatred filled and
yeah,
negative, where when you do have something critical to say about The Last Jedi, it makes it harder for people to take you seriously, or it makes it harder for you to just articulate
yeah,
a critique. And that's why, like, when people, are mistaken for being toxic, for being critical, I think don't blame the people who love Last Jedi. Blame the people who are creating this atmosphere where it's taboo to be critical. Because I'm critical all the time. I'm just not gonna do that for 3 years. I'm gonna talk about the new Star Wars. I'm gonna enjoy Star Wars. So like, when people ask me to be critical about these movies, I'm just like, well, I've already done my videos about them. I don't really need to rehash that stuff.
right.
And so when you're trying to be critical of these movies, and you have valid issues and concerns with these movies, it's just it's increasingly more difficult for you when the vocal minority is creating this atmosphere where you can't do that.
I
You
feel
know.
like I get almost put in a box. Like if you voice, it's very like it's like a two-way street. You either love this movie or hate it. Like I'm just
Hmm.
like, hey, I'm indifferent on it. Like for me personally, it's just like, I just I can't get into it sometimes. Sometimes I feel like I'm in a scene, I'm really enjoying it, and then like, oh, go pull you away. Like I was just enjoying that. I
Mm,
have some issues like that.
yeah,
But like I feel like I get put in I made a couple videos on it. I'm like, I feel like I get put in a box. I'm like, no, 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 no. It's not me. I'm just
yeah,
saying.
Yeah,
I want to be,
I get.
because I feel like the product will only get better if we critique it. That's the only way it gets
yeah.
better,
It's the
and
only
that's what I
way.
want.
Yeah, I get tagged a lot in a lot of videos of people who think that people are hating on The Last Jedi, but are kind of like thoughtfully
Yeah,
discussing parts of the movie. And they want me to like, jump on them and drag them for being
mm,
critical, but that's not what I'm going to do. If you're going to make a movie about, oh, the dagger disappeared and she kicked three people, I'm going to drag you. I'm going to hold you accountable for those words, but I'm not gonna be antagonistic if you didn't enjoy the film.
Right.
That's not how this works.
Well, yeah, it's again. I'm someone who I love the movie. I love almost everything that they did. Of course, the Rose and Finn stuff was a little off. I didn't hate it. It was just there. Um,
It would have made more sense with that cutscene
yeah,
included.
absolutely.
Definitely.
Um, and I think honestly, and Drew, you and I talk about this a lot. The thing that really killed this movie, I don't think was the movie itself. I think it was the expectation of the movie beforehand. Uh, and I think unfortunately the movie that everyone's in their mother is excited to go see next, Spider-Man: No Way Home, is now destined to fail. It's doing the same thing the Last Jedi did. We're hearing all these things. Someone so and so is going to be in there, but then when they're not like how they want them to be, then we're going to get a whole Luke Skywalker fiasco all over again.
Mm.
And it's kind of like to my thing where it's like um, I honestly just hope Star Wars going forward when it comes to movies, which I honestly am really disappointed we're only getting one in the upcoming future until like what 2025, past Rogue Squadrons in 2023. I think Star Wars should just not in a sense say F it and just do whatever, but I just think like sometimes you're gonna have to step on some people's toes because they don't like everything that you're gonna do. That's why I think the sequels also had like so much destined failure in some people's eyes. Is because you're never gonna live up to nostalgia of the prequels or the originals. You're always you and to build like a similar cast, like I don't know, it's so hard because they also had to deal with the old cast of the original trilogy. So yeah,
Just
that's
going back to Drew saying they sound unintelligent. It's like some of these people who
mhm.
complain that this isn't Luke Skywalker, and they point to EU, and then they say Palpatine doesn't make sense, and then they don't point to EU. It's like,
But you
what do you
My
want?
favorite thing is when people use the EU. Half the time they've never read it. They
Right.
only watch videos about it. So they're like, "This is what I grew up with," and it's just like, "Did you know?"
I haven't touched.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't touched a Legends novel. I know, like, I kind of know what happens, but I'm like, this is weird. Like, we got like 7 clones of Luke. I'm like, nah,
Sorry,
I'm not.
still my least favorite character in all of Star Wars, and I don't even need to read the thing. I don't need it. Is Luke with two U's. That will forever be my least favorite thing. They should have never cloned Luke. I'm against cloning people. That's why I didn't like it in Force Unleashed 2. I didn't like it in The Rise of Skywalker. It was it feels very uninspired.
Yeah, and that's why
But
that's why he wasn't a clone, right? He was playing
yeah,
around with these strand casts and
yeah.
creating new bodies out of a mishmash of people. But if you do want to get into some substantial EU or Legends, I would recommend High Republic Revan, High Republic Deceived, High
Yeah.
Republic Fatal Alliance.
I think I have. I have one of those. I think I have
I'm
deceived.
saying High Republic. I'm so sorry.
I know.
Old
I know. I
Republic.
know. I was just gonna say that. Just gonna say they did that. Is deceived by is the author's last name Kemp?
No, 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 no. All of the Old Republic stuff, for all intents and purposes, is done by Drew Karpyshyn.
Okay.
So Revan is by Drew, Deceived is by Drew, Fatal Alliance is by Drew, Annihilation, which we like to meme about, you can skip it if you want, is by Drew. Um, I think Bane is also Drew. A lot of Old Republic is Drew because he was the
Yeah. So
writer
it
on
was
the Old
by me then.
Republic.
It was by me. I wrote it up.
Right.
Yeah. There we go. Yeah. There we go. Yeah.
Yes.
What was I guess? I guess the last thing I was gonna say, kind of to like wrap up my thoughts on this conversation, is that you touched on it a little bit, Alex. One of the reasons I just can't get into the Rise of Skywalker is my bias towards how much I love the ending of Return of the Jedi. My favorite Star Wars character is Anakin. I
Mm.
love his arc. I love that ending. I love the scene where he talks to Luke on the forest moon at Endor, and then they have that scene where he just looks down at the lightsaber, and like you can see like almost the rebirth of Anakin inside the suit. Um, but I just love the end of the Return of the Jedi so much. And then I'm not saying Rise has an awful ending. I'm just saying I just feel a little bit like, I liked it when Return was the end. That's
Yeah.
that's just for me. That's for me. And if hey, I know a lot of people grew up with these, they love them, but that's just me. That's how I feel about it. So I kind of get what you were saying there, Alex, about nostalgia. That's just my love for
Oh
Return of the
yeah,
Jedi and that story.
yeah.
I think
That's
the best way you can reconcile with at least the ending of the Rise of Skywalker. I'm thinking about the High Republic a lot.
Yeah, yeah,
yes.
uh, the best way for you to reconcile with that is that it is an ending for the new characters, even though it involves Palpatine still. It is an ending for Rey, an ending for Kylo, and so Luke already had his ending. That's why he was able to just like give up his life to rekindle the hope of the Resistance. And then he shows up to kind of be that Obi-Wan, be that Yoda for Rey again. So it is in essence just an ending for the new generation. Palpatine is in a strand cast. It's failing him. It's about to. This is his last chance. And the only reason I think Palpatine is the one is because he was always the one. He was the
Yeah.
Phantom Menace. He started this all, and he had to end it all. Now, that's not to take away from Return of the Jedi's ending. It's just to kind of drive it home that this feud and conflict with the Skywalker family transcended even Anakin and Luke. So, you can hold dear the ending in Return of the Jedi and then just be like, okay, well, somehow Palpatine returned.
Right.
yeah.
So, by the way, that is going in top 10 worst explanations for something. Like that somehow he returned is
Yeah.
just it's such a it, my favorite part was the whole memes about it. Um Somehow like when people this was around Mandalorian was coming out. People were saying Greedo and all them were gonna turn, and it was just cutting to the Poe thing, and somehow Greedo has returned. It's just like, yeah, it's like it's such a weird line. Like, technically in the movie, there is explanation for his return. You know, cloning and dark sides. You know, the secret tunnel of the Sith knew. It's like okay, and his whole thing about the dark side giving unnatural abilities or whatever. I can't recite that line anymore. Um, but
The pathway to the dark side. Wait, the path. Wait,
no,
the
The dark
dark
side is a
side is a
is
pathway to
yeah.
many
yeah,
abilities that some consider to be unnatural.
sure, that can be Palpatine's little explanation, but that still does not go into the who, the how, the why, the when. The, like, how is this even possible? Which, of course, is why the novelization explains. Of course, I wouldn't want like a 20-minute in-depth flashback of like what he did, unless the movie was
This is
like,
where they failed in execution. Really,
Totally.
his return was alluded to, and then his return and his full return was put into Fortnite. And then they cut out the message in the beginning of the Rise of Skywalker with Palpatine and Kylo
yes.
meeting the Eye of Webbish Bog. So there was a lot of setup that they cut out that I feel like kind of hurt them in the end,
Yeah.
hurt the movie.
But yeah, I
That
mean,
that that Eye
I
of Webbish Bog would have been terrifying to
yes,
see.
Oh
but
yeah,
Terrifying.
I think something that honestly, like, Marvel does this sometimes. They did it with Infinity War. How when they show the Marvel Studios logo, it has the overlay of the SOS from the ship that they have in Ragnarok. And I honestly think instead of having the big Star Wars theme, it should have been Palpatine's message overlaying, um, probably like even like a small variation of the Palpatine theme from Return of the Jedi, overlaying his message that we for some reason got in Fortnite. So
yeah.
um, yeah, that to me would have been a much better opening than kind of like uh, the dead speak,
Yeah.
or I think because if we see the dead speak and we're literally hearing the dead speaking, I think it would pay a bit more dividends to then, bam, big fanfare.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know.
No,
That that's
yeah.
just, that's just me. I wish that's how the movie would have opened. I feel like it would have benefited the movie more with that message being in, especially also with the Eye of Webbish Bog, like the Rise of Skywalker novelization goes into what all that was, and we we got cut the fact that was not in the movie.
Yeah. No, every time I discuss the Rise of Skywalker, it's what I say.
Yeah,
Um, every time someone says Palpatine didn't make sense for him to return, and I was like, and I will say it did, but the way they executed it, I have to make that concession because,
yeah,
like, you know, going back to the aftermath novels with the contingency and Operation Cinder with Battlefront 2 and all of the setup leading to him, like the voice in, like Chaco told me about this. um I had read the Force Awakens novelization, and there was an amorphous voice that tells Rey to kill him. I was like, oh man, that's Palpatine's voice. Then Chaco told me he had listened to the audiobook version, and the narrator did it in Palpatine's voice. So I was like, all right, he's coming back. So the plan is always there. He was always going to come back, but the way they did it was very ham-fisted, and yeah, I have to concede on that front.
agreed.
Yeah, I totally agree with like the fact that the seeds were, there. But my thing with it is like I try to look at it from an average fan's perspective. They're
Mm-hmm.
not going to read the canon material. We're crazy. We like to read that type of stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
I just visually in a movie, like a movie like explanation, I'm like, even I was like, what is happening right now? That's just somebody who has read the aftermath books. I don't read all of the books, but like, I'm like, even still, it's like, it could have been executed better, but it
Yeah,
happened. Got to deal with
I
it.
would have, for the Force Awakens, I would have put that voice in the film, like kill him, in the same fashion he says it
Oh,
to
even
Anakin.
you know how I would have done it because I agree with you. You know how they have the Obi-Wan um, voice in her flashback? Have it
Yeah.
be very, very faint. Like you can hear it, but it's not overtaking the scene.
Unlimited power.
Yeah. Which
Yeah,
isn't he in that flashback? Like people said you could hear his voice in there.
I think it's I think it's like a quote from like one of the movies. But it's not him saying anything that's like out of character.
okay.
Like
Yeah,
Obi-Wan's voice, and they cut it to sound like he's saying Rey. But then there's quotes from Yoda from Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah.
I think there's quotes from Palpatine who's saying something. I don't know, but it's not like an original line, right? They
It
they,
will.
they took it from another
Yeah.
movie.
To me, I I don't know how to like describe the scene, but like when she falls over, it sounds like that sound like it makes like a weird ah. It sounds like a mixed audio of his his scream from Revenge of the Sith.
Hmm.
So that's
plus
what it sounds like to me. It's like that's I was like it sounds so familiar.
My number
yeah,
one edit for alluding to Palpatine for casual fans is the moment Kylo Ren bisects Snoke and Snoke dies. There's like a silhouette of a man cloaked, and he's going like getting taken out of like his trance, like one of his subservient, you know, Strandcasts just died, and like he's like you can only see the cloak, even though everyone's gonna know it's Palpatine. Like he's just there. Snoke gets cut in half, and then quick frame to him jumping out of a trance, and then you jump out of it. You're like, who is that? Who is that? And then like you have all those theories that pop up.
right. Plus when like the way she fights in the Force Awakens, it's very Palpatine-ish, I guess you
Mm-hmm.
could say. Like
Many
with the
jabs and
right.
whatnot.
And I'm trying to think. I actually thought narratively, Ray Kenobi like you did. I thought,
Mm-hmm.
I thought a Kenobi versus a Skywalker, Anakin fall into the dark side, when he fights Obi-Wan, and then Ray Kenobi trying to bring back a Skywalker from the dark to the light. I was all down.
Yeah, I was all in on
See,
that one. I was like, that's
yeah,
poetry in motion right there.
yeah,
The grandchildren.
Yeah, it's like even then, like the Rey Kenobi would have worked even more just because again, the final fight on Kef Bir, it's a complete inverse of Mustafar, where Anakin and Obi-Wan were fighting on a lava-infested planet. Kylo and Rey were fighting on a water-infested planet.
Yeah.
So it's just like it matches every time because um, I don't know. It's like it feels weird to just have Rey Palpatine be a thing. Like, I mean, we could go into that whole can of worms about the whole Rey
Yeah,
Skywalker, Rey Palpatine thing.
I don't know.
It's
I don't know if
so
you've
bad.
seen my video on that because I do express that Ray Kenobi to me makes more sense
Mm-hmm.
with the whole kind of full circle of the Mustafar fight and then the Kefbir fight, where it's
Yeah.
them, they're the grandchildren now, except a reversal of the Skywalker fate. But ultimately, how I land on Palpatine being or Ray being a Palpatine and her arc in that movie is that it's also full circle from the
Mm-hmm.
prequels because you start with and this is just me rehashing my video. You start with Palpatine corrupting a Skywalker. Then in the originals you have his children cleansing that corruption, and then in the sequels the children keeping a Palpatine from the dark side and in essence redeeming that Palpatine. So it's a reversal, right? There's a Palpatine corrupting a Skywalker, Skywalker redeeming a Palpatine, or at least keeping them from choosing the dark.
Right.
And so it's that poetry that ultimately convinces me.
Definitely. I will ask you, Element. My only like one thing I have a problem with the Rise of Skywalker, and I guess it's again kind of my bias towards Return of the Jedi. I feel like Return of the Jedi does a really good job of wrapping everything up, all six. Obviously, the prequels hadn't been made yet, but do you think Rise, even just a little scene where Anakin and Kenobi show up as Force Ghost with Luke and Leia, I know it would kind of feel out of place, but do you think Rise could have done a better job of also obviously Palpatine was in it, but included more like prequel trilogy elements, I guess.
Um, I'm kind of 50-50 on that. I would have loved to see Force Ghosts of other people involved in this entire saga, but at the same time, showing up to Rey doesn't make sense, right? She has no connection to them. She only has a connection to Luke and Leia. So, like when like I would be it would be cool to see Ben show up as a Force Ghost. There, they all have connections, but like when people say, "Oh, I wanted Anakin to show up along with Luke and Leia," I was like, "Well, she doesn't know Anakin. They don't have a connection." So, I mean, which is why when I did like a redux or an alternate cut of the ending for Rise of Skywalker, I made Anakin speaking to Ben, telling him how to heal her. But at the same time, that's lore inaccurate because he doesn't know, and Ben knows simply through the dyad. But I just wanted to give people that scene where Anakin is just talking to Ben, but at the same time, Ben doesn't have a connection to Anakin. Like he wouldn't show up for Ben either, you know. Especially when he's Kylo and he's on the dark side, because you know, at least to what we know, Force ghosts do not show up to Darksiders, and Darksiders can't be Force ghosts. So I'm kind of 50-50. I would have loved to see even if they don't show up to Rey, because narratively that wouldn't make sense, but they would appear to Palpatine, like in the "I'm the all the Jedi" scene. Rey doesn't see any of the Force ghosts, but Palpatine is looking at all these people that he screwed over, and that's something he's seeing. I think that would be cool for the audience to see.
Definitely.
Agree. Agree.
Well, I mean, I guess that's all we got. We covered a lot. I want to thank Element for coming on. Obviously, if you want to listen to him and Choco's thoughts about the episode, watch Dyad tomorrow. Dyad in the Force on his channel. I'll link it down below. Uh, no, great show. think they'll have some great guests on. I'm not sure who, but they always got good guests on.
We have Margie Skywalker or Mary Beth or Beth, and then we have Camilla or Bariko Wookie.
Oh, okay. Very excited. Very excited. I will be there. I hope you guys, if you're in the chat, all watch. Alex and I will be back next Wednesday. What are we watching? First Avenger?
We're
right?
watching the first Avenger.
Okay, so we'll do a
Ooh.
rewatch and a recap of that, and then talk about What If Episode 2. So, till next time, we will see you all then.